Have you ever met someone who ignored the one thing everyone else couldn't stop staring at? I didn't realize that moment would uncover a conspiracy that had nearly taken my life. Ever since the accident, people saw my wheelchair before they saw me. Investors, employees, strangers, it didn't matter. Their eyes always dropped first, and only then did they remember I was Chelsea Burke, CEO of Burke Office Furniture Corporation. So when I rolled into the lobby that Tuesday morning, I expected the same familiar look. It never came. Instead, I found a man kneeling on the marble floor, running 2 fingers across a hairline crack as if the building were whispering secrets only he could hear. "You're Taylor Brennan?" I asked. He stood, wiped the dust from his hands, and smiled politely. "You must be Chelsea Burke." That was it. No awkward glance at my wheelchair, no sympathy. His eyes met mine for barely a second before returning to the floor. "Something's wrong," he said quietly. I frowned. "With the marble?" "No," he shook his head. "The marble is only telling us the story." He aimed a laser across the floor, studied the measurements, then looked toward the executive elevators. "The foundation has shifted." My heartbeat quickened. "How serious is it?" "Serious enough that I'd stop using that elevator until I know what's underneath." His answer hit me like ice water. That elevator wasn't just another elevator. It was the one I depended on every single day because of my wheelchair. For a moment, memories crashed back without warning. Twisted metal, shattering glass, doctors telling me I would never walk again. I tightened my grip on the armrests, refusing to let Taylor see my hands trembling. "I'll need permission to open the floor," he said. You have it," I answered without hesitation. 2 days later, the marble was gone. What Taylor uncovered beneath it wasn't a construction mistake. It looked like someone had buried the truth on purpose, and I had a terrifying feeling that whoever had done it wasn't finished yet. What would you do if the person you trusted most had signed every document that could destroy your life? I wasn't ready for the answer. That night, I took the renovation files home. Contracts, invoices, inspection reports, they covered my dining table. I had signed off on the project while recovering from the accident, trusting my COO, Hector Edwards, to handle every detail. Around midnight, one name kept appearing: approved by Hector Edwards. Every contractor, every payment, every inspection. I whispered to myself, please let this be a coincidence. It wasn't. The next morning, Taylor called me to the construction zone beneath the executive elevator. Dust filled the air. The polished lobby I'd been so proud of had become an open wound. He pointed his flashlight towards the exposed concrete. "Come closer." I rolled to the edge and looked down. My heart sank. Steel reinforcing bars had been cut short, fresh concrete covered uneven pores. The elevator pit was nearly 4 inches narrower than building code required. "This can't be real," I said. Taylor met my eyes. "It is." "Could someone have missed this?" He shook his head. "No, someone approved it." Those 4 words hit harder than the accident ever had. Back in my office, I searched the Millennium construction contract line by line. Buried deep inside the legal language, I found an arbitration clause redirecting every structural dispute to an unfamiliar private company. I called my attorney immediately. "Gregory, I think Hector hid something." He phoned back less than an hour later. "Chelsea," he said, his voice unusually tense, "that arbitration company is owned by a shell corporation." "And who owns the shell corporation?" There was a long silence. Hector Edwards. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. The cracks beneath my building weren't just structural. They led straight to the man I had trusted to protect everything I had built. And for the first time, I wondered, had Hector been planning this from the very beginning? The moment I saw the photograph, one terrifying thought crossed my mind. This wasn't negligence anymore.
Someone wanted me dead. Gregory stopped me from confronting Hector. "If he realizes we're onto him," my attorney warned, "he'll destroy every piece of evidence before sunrise." So I smiled through meetings, answered Hector's questions, and pretended everything was normal. "How are the repairs going?" he asked casually. I forced myself to smile. Slower than expected. For just a fraction of a second, I caught something in his eyes. Not concern, relief. Later that afternoon, Taylor knocked on my office door, holding a single photograph instead of his usual inspection report. I found this inside the elevator pit. He laid it on my desk. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then he pointed to the hydraulic pressure sensor. The metal bracket had been bent, barely enough for anyone to notice. "What does that mean?" I whispered. "It means the sensor would report normal pressure even if the hydraulic system was failing." I stared at him. "You're saying someone sabotaged the elevator?" "I'm saying someone made it look safe." A chill raced through my body. "The damage is fresh," Taylor continued. "This happened within the last few days." My hands immediately reached for the building's electronic access records. Only one employee had entered the maintenance corridor after business hours during the elevator service window. Hector Edwards. Neither of us spoke. We didn't have to. That evening, Gregory called again. "Chelsea, we traced Hector's shell companies, and they're connected to a rival investment firm that's been quietly buying interests in your suppliers." I closed my eyes. If Burke office furniture collapsed, they would be perfectly positioned to take control. I lowered the phone, fighting back tears. The elevator wasn't the target. I was. And for the first time since the accident that stole the use of my legs, I dared to ask the question that terrified me most. What if that crash hadn't been an accident either? I thought Hector had stolen my company. I never imagined he had stolen my future first. 3 days after Gregory delivered our evidence to federal investigators, the waiting ended. The lobby fell silent as SEC agents and federal prosecutors walked through the front doors. Employees stopped talking. Keyboards went quiet. From my office, I watched them disappear into Hector's office. A minute later, they came back out. Hector was between them. He spotted me across the lobby. For the first time in years, he had no confident smile, no clever explanation, just fear. As agents escorted him toward the exit, he muttered, "Chelsea, this isn't what you think." I answered calmly, "No, it's worse." That afternoon, Gregory called again.
His voice trembled. "They recovered deleted emails." I gripped the phone. "What did they find?" A long silence followed. "The crash that put you in the wheelchair," my heart pounded so hard it hurt, "was arranged." The room seemed to disappear around me. "What are you saying?" "Hector used shell companies to pay intermediaries who hired the truck driver. Investigators believe he wanted you seriously injured, not killed. If you couldn't lead Burke office furniture, he could take control piece by piece." A tear rolled down my cheek before I realized I was crying. For an entire year, I had blamed rain, bad luck, fate. It wasn't fate. It was betrayal. The following morning, I faced the board of directors. Without emotion, I presented every document: construction fraud, financial records, the tampered elevator sensor, and finally, the federal evidence connecting Hector to the staged collision. When I finished, no one spoke. The silence said everything. Finally, the board chair looked at me and whispered, "Chelsea, you didn't just save this company." She paused, her own eyes filling with tears. "You survived someone who tried to erase your life." At that moment, I made myself one promise. Hector had taken enough from me. He would never take my future. Sometimes the strongest foundations aren't made of concrete. They're built from the truth. And what happened next proved it.
A month after Hector's arrest, I crossed the marble lobby alone. For the first time in a year, I didn't look at the elevator with fear. The repairs were complete. Independent inspectors had certified every bolt, every support beam, every inch of the shaft. The building was finally as honest as it looked. That afternoon, I asked Taylor Brennan to meet me. He stepped into my office carrying another inspection folder. He said, "I figured you wanted the maintenance schedule," with a smile. I said, "I want something much bigger." I slid a document across the desk. He read the title, then looked back at me in surprise. Vice President of Facilities and Real Estate Operations. He said, "I've never been an executive." I replied, "No, you've been something rarer, a man who refused to ignore the truth." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled. "I accept." Weeks later, I introduced Taylor to the entire company. The applause echoed through the same lobby where his sharp eyes had uncovered the first crack. As everyone celebrated, I glanced down at the flawless marble beneath us. It looked exactly as it had before, but I knew better. Because the greatest danger had never been beneath the floor, it had been hiding behind a trusted smile. And that's the lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life. Never judge strength by appearances. Sometimes the smallest crack exposes the biggest betrayal, and sometimes the person who saves your life is the one who simply chooses to look closer. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments. Have there been people like Hector in your life?
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.